All right. Hello. What's going on? Welcome to my channel where we're talking about elderly care, doing in home elderly care for a loved one or somebody you know that is up against a condition that is going to call for them to have assistance or need assistance in the house. Um, yeah, and it could be kind of anybody, but specifically what I focus on is elderly care, using the case study of my grandmother, Ruth Kenton, that I was entrusted with her care for several years. And if you've seen any of my videos, you know that we've been going down a list of different items and things to look for if you do choose to take this process on for yourself. Um, so yeah, I'm going to get my slides together and we'll go ahead and jump right into it. So, boom. All right, and tonight we're going to look at infrastructure support. So, we talked about medical needs, we talked about financial needs for both you and the customer previously, and infrastructure support. It's kind of the third leg of that tree. Um, And in my first video, talking about doing the initial assessment, I had infrastructure listed as something that when you're first walking into this process and you're even trying to evaluate if this is something that you do want to do, having an understanding of the infrastructure that the customer is living in is critical, because the first thing that you want to vet for is if they even have a house that is, livable or up to their standards or whatever their condition is, to make sure that that's even going to support it. Because if it's not going to support it, or if they need like overwhelming medical equipment, or it could be whatever, it could be that they, what would be a good example? They're immobile, right? But they live on the 12th floor of some building with questionable elevator service, and they're frequently going to need to go to the doctor or whatever. That's probably not going to work for the customer. You're probably going to want to look at alternatives. So that could be one situation. But I think what you're going to run into the most, and what I ran into the most with Ruth, was just the general maintenance of the house, because her house was a place that her and my grandfather had lived in for, good grief, I would say 70 years. I don't have the exact number, but I would say it's something like that. Post World War II, they got married and they got a house, and this was the house that they lived in until he died in 2011, and then until she died in October of 2023. So a long time. And even the way that they built the house, it was piecemealed together. It started with 3 rooms, and then they expanded for another room, and then they expanded. I want to say they built the kitchen on later, and then they started having kids, and then they expanded and built another wing of the house, essentially, which would be the kids' bedrooms. And it's interesting because she and my grandfather literally had a name for every room in the house. So there's obviously like the living room and the kitchen, and rooms that have the commonality names. But there was also in her house, there was the front room, there was the big room, there was the boys' room, the girls' room, and then out back there was the pool room, and then there was the end room, and then there was the pantry, and maybe I just covered all of them. That might be it. But they had specific names for every room of the house, and I think the way that developed was that they literally built everything a piece at a time. So as they were building on more rooms while it was under construction, they were giving them these names. So this was the situation for me. It might be similar to what you had. Maybe they've got a more modern house, which is actually a better scenario altogether to be in, because you're just looking at newer equipment, newer construction, newer technology, and you're not going to run into a lot of things that we ran into over the years, like cast iron pipes, for plumbing, or old electrical wiring. They had fuses, not a circuit breaker panel. It was fuses, and so stuff like that. Which there was a point where they did upgrade that, so it wasn't like that through its entirety, but it was previously a fuse panel before they had it rewired for breakers. So just that kind of stuff that you're going to have to look out for. And as I was there with her, I was running into things that would come up where, there would need to be maintenance on, just like there is in any living condition, any situation. And that's kind of what you want to have a grasp of, is the overall condition of the place, if it works for the customer, and then having some sort of idea of how you want to move into that as problems arise, because they will arise. I mean, it's like that with wherever you currently live. Something comes up. Maybe you're renting. Maybe you're just calling your landlord, and they're actually implementing the solution. Or if you're a property owner, of course, that you're going to be implementing the solution, and it's going to be the same way for the customer, whoever you're taking care of. They're either going to be responsible for the implementation of that solution that you're going to assist with, or you're going to have to know who to call in order to do that. So let me go on here to the next slide. I've just got a couple of bullet points for this tonight. And that's the first bullet point there. That's already what I'm talking about, understanding the living space. And even as you're understanding it, understanding the specifics of it. So, for instance, not that this example was something that I personally ran into. Actually, you know what? It was, because she did have... well, let me give you the example, and then I'll break down before I start jumping too far ahead of myself. For instance, something like the air conditioning unit, big ticket item, right? If you go over there, or if you're there and you turn the air condition on, and then from outside you hear metal on metal, and you're hearing like a bunch of stuff that just doesn't sound natural. Well, okay, be aware of that. How long will it last? I don't know. Maybe it will last this summer. Maybe it will last 2 summers, or maybe it breaks next week. You're gonna want to know what's going on with that, and then have an idea of what happens if you're getting an obvious red flag about something that, again, you don't know how long it's going to last. You're going to want to be aware of that and start having an idea in your head. The reason why I was saying that, like, that's actually kind of a random example, but she did have her furnace replaced maybe 5 years ago or so while I was there, and but it wasn't because it was causing a noise or something. I think it just flat like pooped out, and she had to have it replaced. Or the roof, that was another big ticket item that she had to have replaced. And something like that, unless you're getting leaks, which it was an older house, there was some leaks, but it was natural for it to have leaks because of its age. How often are you looking at the roof of a house? Something that a condition that might be going on that you might not be tracking, because it's just not something that's going to have a high level of visibility on. Or like I mentioned, the cast iron pipes, which makes sense for the age of the house, but really it would come up because we would have plumbing issues from time to time and need to call somebody out. And that was always what they were, that was always a fundamental piece of whatever they were fixing. It would start with, well, we've got to get rid of the cast iron pipes and replace it with PVC, and then we can, put the solution in from there. But like, how often are you looking under the house? Like, you're not going to know that until something just flat out breaks. Or I remember one time specifically, the back bathroom in the house, I could just hear water running. And I was like, my gosh, what is that? And I walked around back, and like, sure enough, a pipe had busted, and there was just free flowing water just spilling out of the pipe. And I had to, figure out what to do about that. And then of course I called somebody. I've got, and I'm going to speak a little bit more about that in a later bullet, but the second bullet that I've got is just to have some tools handy, because what I've described so far are like these major processes and changeovers. I mean, no one's going to, an unskilled worker is not going to look at a entire HVAC unit replacement and then say to themselves, oh yeah, I can take care of that, no problem. That's something that you're gonna need to call somebody in for. of course, and that's the same thing with the roof. But something as smaller stuff comes up, having a basic set of screwdrivers and wrenches and these common tools, and even if you don't have any experience using tools, hey brother, time to learn. Like time to learn. If you're going to do this, you need to have some sort of basic competency in the doorknob is loose and you need to tighten it. You're not going to call somebody out to do that. I mean, maybe you would find somebody who would be willing to take your money, to do a house call on something like that. But in general, you just need to have these basic skills and know how to do these simple top level type of repairs or fixes. So it could be something like that. I went into a little more detail with some of the stuff that I did. I mean, yeah, I took care of small stuff like that. Oiling a squeaky door hinge, just basic, simple, straightforward stuff like that. But also, for instance, the electric plugs in her kitchen, the outlets, were so old that when you would plug something in, it would fall right out. The plug would just fall right out. Like there was no friction between the plug and the receptacle. So I went in and I changed all the receptacles out, which is, I mean, it's on the basic end of electric work. It's not, wiring in a panel, or running a completely new service to a residence. But it's also too maybe not something that you're going to something that you're going to want to do if you don't know how to do it. It's not something that you're going to want to do without like looking at a YouTube video or just getting some basic understanding of it. So it's more advanced than just seeing a loose screw and screwing it in. But it's also something that you still can do, and it's not super complex or advanced. So like that's something that I did around the house. Also, I don't have this as a bullet point, but as I'm speaking, I'm thinking about this, especially if they're a residence owner and knowing how to use tools, knowing how to do some basic yard maintenance, okay, raking, cutting the grass, picking up limbs, stuff like that. You're going to want to have a basic competency on it, and either have the equipment or make a plan for the equipment. The spirit of all of this is the house cannot fall into disrepair, okay? And that's also aesthetic disrepair. So even if the house is actually functioning fine, but you've got grass outside that's 2 feet tall, unacceptable. It has to look presentable, and it has to be functional aesthetically. And again, this is an expression that I use all the time. The eyes of the family are on you, okay? And it's not that everything everyone says matters all the time, but sometimes some things that people think and say do matter, okay? And if a loved one has been entrusted into your care and the house looks like a disaster from the exterior, it's not going to go over well. And frankly, I would be in agreement with that. It shouldn't go over well. If you're going to take ownership of this process, take ownership of it. Okay? So that's something that you're going to want to keep in mind. Use your resources. Okay? So I'm mentioning the lawn, and maybe the lawn isn't your thing, but maybe the neighbor or another stakeholder or somebody, a friend, it could be whoever, is willing to assist you with that. Okay, great. Delegate that out and bring them in. Use your resources and the customer's resources, especially if they are being done, if they're being done and postured in a way that brings overall value. Okay, if it's somebody, like say you're gonna have somebody do the yard work, but their price is outrageous or something, okay, well then no, that doesn't fit functionally. And actually Ruth one of her grandsons, one of my cousins, has a lawn care business, and that's actually where her lawn care would come from. He would have a team go out, a crew go out and take care of her yard, and that's why her yard was always kept really well. That might not be your case though. The customer that you're taking care of might not have that same kind of family connection. So you're going to want to figure out how you can implement something that still keeps up what needs to be done in order to keep the overall aesthetic of a nice household. YouTube. If you're watching this video, you're already taking a point from my bullet here, which is use YouTube. I mean, and this is, friends, this is just fundamental in life. I don't know anybody that tries to do anything in life that, or meaning from a skill set standpoint, where they're trying to learn and grow, and they don't immediately hit YouTube. I'm talking about wiring in a plug, YouTube, or even if you're not going to do the work on something that comes up and you need to diagnose the problem, YouTube. That's instantly YouTube, and your basic search engine, probably Google, right? Are just the two most connected items that you can use in order to help put together what it is you need to know and a proper way to move forward when something like this comes up. So use your resources. And again, your stakeholders are also resources. One of Ruth's sons was in charge of the infrastructure of her house. So as I was getting things set up, I ended up bringing him in and asking him to start taking care of some of this stuff so that it can be delegated out. And he was willing to do it. This is another expression I use. Families are complicated. It might not be the same way for your situation, but if someone, a stakeholder or family member, is interested in assisting, you should figure out a way to make that work, especially, again, if it brings the overall value to the customer and their well-being. Have a list of technicians to call. Okay, so the electrician, the plumber, the roofer, the lawn care maintenance person, the guy that fixes the dishwasher, the guy that knows refrigerators, the guy that can come and set up some piece of complicated medical equipment, and usually that's going to be the medical provider, but just saying, have an idea of who you want to call in these moments and situations. And once you have somebody come out, and just like you would anyways, if this was your personal life, or you weren't, just doing this specifically to care for somebody else, keep their information and keep using them, as long as, again, they're providing that value at a fair price and the quality of work is good and everything. Because what you're going to find with doing these infrastructure repairs is that if a new person comes out, they've got to get spun up on the way everything is laid out, and it's kind of like a whole, just like when you go to a new physician, right? It's like, oh, here comes those same long checklist again of everything, because they don't know me and don't have any idea of what my medical history is. So I got to go through that whole gambit of going through like an initial interview or whatever it would be called. Yeah, so have a list of technicians to call, and make sure that they're people that are local, and just all the common sense stuff that would go into that. And then my last note here is just generally speaking to say, be useful. Just be useful. Don't look at something and automatically, if you see something, maybe you're not going to act on it right away, but doggone it, take a moment and figure out what it is that's going on, or make a note of it or whatever, so that you can like keep an eye on it. Or if it's something that you see that can be fixed by you, the caretaker, fix it. Just fix it. Be useful. And this could go like, there's so many different little things that I fixed either around the house, or like one time her walker broke and the wheel broke, and I had to go to the medical supply store and get a wheel, brought it back. It was the wrong wheel. Had to go back, exchange it for the right wheel, come back, put the wheel on and fix it. Like and I'm like sitting there and I'm like hemming and hawing the whole time because I'm just frustrated. It was like I get home after work and yeah, and her walker's broke, and like the walker is critical for her. She literally was not able to get around without the walker, not to use the bathroom or anything. Literally couldn't get around, and so like it had to be fixed in the moment. Okay, be useful. Like things are going to come up. Don't be surprised by it. Expect it. Expect that things will come up. And there are, I mean, several other rabbit holes that could be gone down speaking for infrastructure, but that's basically it. Remember, at the end of the day, everything is being worked in order to give the customer the best care possible, so they can have the best quality of life for the time that they have remaining. Okay, awesome. And finally, I'm going to wrap things up. Questions. My same slide here. Questions. If you've got questions about doing in-home elderly care, hit me up with an email. Put it in the comments, Mario at the Alpha Italian. Give me your name and location. And when I get a set of questions, I'm going to come on and answer them live. So, all right. Thank you, everybody. Hope you have a great Easter, and I will see you next time. Take care.